With Shadow Generations and Sonic Racing Crossworlds being the most recent Sonic games, a lot of people are starting to finally have some faith in Sonic Team once again, since both of those games were pretty big hits. Of course, Sonic Frontiers and the movies really kicked all of this off, but Frontiers still has some of that late 2010s Soniciness to it, even though I do love it. However, all of that can finally be addressed in the next big Sonic game, which will most likely be the sequel to Sonic Frontiers. I'm just gonna call it Sonic Frontiers 2, or Frontiers 2 even. Because while I don't think that's actually what it'll be called, what else do you want me to call it? Gameplay-wise, I think it'll be similar to Frontiers, so Frontiers 2 makes the most sense at the moment. But now that the quality of Sonic games is starting to ramp up, what exactly should Frontiers 2 even be like? Going over the more broad stuff, of course things like what the story will be could depend on a ton of other stuff, so I'm going to go over what I think is the most likely to be in Sonic Frontiers 2. The obvious things like gameplay and level design and such. So make sure to subscribe and drop a like on this video if you enjoy, but let's get right into it. A little while ago, I made a video about some improvements that I'd like to see for the open zone, and I think that video is still pretty much how I feel about the open zone today. Better map design, longer objectives to go for, and tightening up the player controller are all things I still want to see for the open zone in the next game. Shadow Generations actually does do some of this quite well, even though it's just a small hub world type space. There's some actual Sonic style platforming and level design. Yeah, I know a lot of it can be skipped, but still, it's nice to have. And there are also some longer chunks of level design in the hub that lead to different stuff like bosses, collectibles, or just as a part of another challenge. I've mentioned Sonic Speed Simulator a couple times in the past, and I'm purely talking about their world design here, but I think it's actually really neat and incorporates a lot of Sonic elements into a sort of open zone style space. These maps are a lot smaller than the islands in Frontiers, and even the hub in Shadow Generations, so I'm not asking for these specifically. I do also think they're still a little too automated, but something a lot closer to this, over the islands in Frontiers, would be really cool to see in the open zone. You could have actual loops and set pieces tied into the environment themselves, rather than the floating rails and platforms everywhere, which is actually one of the main things that I do want to see the open zone change. Again, Shadow Gens did a pretty good job with this, but the floating rails and stuff everywhere in Frontiers is just ugly and not great to look at. Sonic games in the past have made the level design work as a part of the environment, so there's really no excuse here if they're looking to improve it. Most of the time though, you can't see any of these floating platforms because the pop-in is just that bad. Yeah, this has been beaten to death, I won't linger on it, but the pop-in has gotta go, especially for an open zone game. But I really don't have much new to add onto the open zone besides all that. A lot of it is just minor technical improvements, or just improving the maps in general, and if they can do that, then I think the next Sonic game has a shot at being one of the best ever made. You'll truly be able to feel like you're running through Sonic's world as the Blue Blur himself. But okay, what kind of characters should we get in Frontiers 2? Sonic is a given, unless they want to be really crazy and make a solo Knuckles game. Please Sega, I need this! That could be a separate video on its own. But speaking of Knuckles, I would really like to see him as a major character in the next game. I just really think the open zone style suits him as a character almost more than Sonic himself, probably because of the treasure hunting gameplay from the adventure games, and I don't know, I've just been on a Knuckles kick lately, I guess. They should really try to make his moveset a lot more like the adventure games though, because while it was improved with updates in Frontiers, I still don't really love it all that much. One big thing especially is not being able to attach to and climb any wall you want. That was a thing you could do in Adventure 1, 2, and even 06. Now you couldn't always unstick in 06, but at least the thought was there. Plus, if the levels and maps are designed with these extra characters in mind, just imagine how fun some of Knuckles' sections could be. No, not those. These. I also think that if Frontiers 2 still has a focus on combat, Knuckles could have some actually cool combo moves this time around. And then you could swap characters with the press of a button, and there could even be a flying type character too. Oh, right, like this, but better? Okay, next character though. We gotta have Tails here. He's probably more likely than Knuckles anyways. And as for his moveset, I think his flight needs to be a lot better than it was in the Final Horizon for sure. His base flight just felt super clunky and not great. Meanwhile, his super infinite flight mode was way too broken and just made every platforming challenge as Tails completely skippable and too easy. I'm not entirely too sure how they balance this out, but again, if the maps are designed with Tails' movement in mind, I think they could make it work. And as for our final Frontiers playable character, Amy, I'm just not super sold on her yet. I think it was great that she was playable in the Final Horizon, but unless they really want to change up her moveset, there's really no reason to play as her over Sonic, or vice versa. Which could be fine, honestly options aren't a bad thing at all, but I'd rather they spend time on making things that would actually be different, instead of similar feeling characters. This is also why I don't really want Shadow in this game, because yeah, he does have chaos control and stuff, but he also largely plays the exact same as Sonic. Honestly, most of these characters heavily depend on what the story even is. Maybe Silver is in this game and he becomes playable, or even someone like Eggman could be playable. But I mostly just wanted to talk about who I'd personally like to see in Frontiers 2, with my most wanted character being a better playing Knuckles. Oh, and Blaze. Yeah, I know I just ranted about the same character type thing, but I make an exception for her because I think it'd be really cool. You can't be a Sonic fan without some minor hypocrisy every now and then. And finally, the presentation. This segment is probably just going to be me glazing JakeCenZ and Crossworlds, because they've really improved things in the past few years, JakeCenZ especially. First up, I need Roger to lock in on his Sonic performance this time around. I didn't mind the direction in Frontiers, I even got used to it, but we've all seen that one clip from the Final Horizon.
We're one step away from the next tower and the next emerald. You got this, buddy. I have your back.
So, more Sonic from Freeriders, or even the Boom cartoon.
Maybe you just need something to eat. I'll run and get you a Medburger.
And less Batman or Kyle Crane from Dying Light, please. Next up are the animations, both in-game and cutscenes. Shadow Generations showed what Sonic Team is capable of, and even though that game was a lot smaller in scope, if they can manage to pull off something similar with Frontiers 2, then we'd be in for a treat. And something that kind of goes in tandem with that are new models for the Sonic characters. Please, for the love of everything Sonic Team, just update your models. It's been said hundreds, thousands, probably millions of times, but please just make them look better. I'm not the most qualified to talk about what needs to change, but there have been some great videos and posts about it, so I recommend checking those out after this to see what I mean. Then there's the actual graphics and look of the game itself. Honestly, this one I'm way less concerned with, because it heavily depends on the setting of the game, but seeing some more Sonic-y locations would be nice, but not a necessity at all. Especially if they do what I said earlier, with the map design of the open zone and stuff. Of course, I'd prefer to not see repeat locations, unless it's really something we haven't seen in a while, like Ice Cap or Egg Fleet. But I'd also really love to see some of those original Crossworlds get fully fleshed out in a mainline game. And speaking of Crossworlds, I think those original stages definitely show that Sonic Team is still fully capable of making cool and unique spaces, and with more time, budget, and manpower, I hope they can make it happen. Lastly, there's the music. Just kidding, I'm not gonna try and predict what bangers they'll cook up, but more songs like the Titan themes would be pretty awesome, just saying. So what do you think Sonic Frontiers 2 will be like? Do you think it'll just be more of the same? Or will they really switch things up and do something completely different? It wouldn't exactly be out of the ordinary if they did, but leave a comment down below and tell me your thoughts, as well as what you think of my suggestions. Regardless of whether or not anything in this video comes true, I still have some pretty high expectations for the next big Sonic game, because the past few games have raised the bar like crazy. I genuinely didn't expect to have this much confidence in Sonic Team like 5 years ago, but I guess that's what'll happen when they're actually allowed to cook, Sega! Anyways, don't forget to subscribe for some future Sonic content, and as usual, I'll see you next time.